Hey guys, it's Cass. Today I'm going to be doing my 1K Q&A. I asked you guys for some questions on Instagram and on YouTube, and you very much delivered. We've got a lot of them to go through, but I did just want to say thank you guys for tuning into my videos. Never thought that I would hit this milestone so quickly. It's been such a fun little project for me to work on, and I've really just enjoyed creating this little community that we have on here. So yeah, I'm looking forward to everything that this year brings, and hoping to stay consistent with the videos and read some good books and talk about them with you guys. I got a handful of personal non-bookish questions, a bunch of booktube related questions, and then a ton of book related questions. So I think that's the order that I'm gonna go through them. I kind of tried to even separate them within those categories and put them in an order that makes sense. So hopefully this flows well and hopefully I don't ramble on forever. I also feel like we've got a weird lighting situation here. I've kind of shifted over. I feel like I haven't filmed in the corner over there in a hot minute, but yeah, I wanted to try something different because the lighting in my apartment right now is just not giving. We're gonna get into it. The first question that I got is, what is your profession and how does it affect your reading and vice versa? I am a marketing manager. I work at a healthcare company. I have a little team of 2 people that work with me, and we are responsible for the company's website, social media, any advertising. If you want to know how to get a billboard, I can tell you how. I know some people. And then we also plan a charity golf outing and do all of the fundraising and event planning for it, which pretty soon here is going to start taking up all of my time. But yeah, it was my first job out of college. I've been there for almost 3 years. So yeah, it does not affect my reading at all. And I don't think that my reading affects my job at all. I'm not out here reading business or marketing books or anything like that. And I don't think that I'm really applying anything from the books that I read to my job. 2 very separate worlds, which is fine. Kind of related, someone had seen the flag from my college that I went to on my other bookshelf, and they asked what I majored in. I actually triple majored, which thinking back, I feel like my advisor should not have let me do that. The only reason why I was really able to do it was because so many of the classes that I was taking overlapped with different majors. And yeah, I triple majored in marketing, entrepreneurship / small business management, and then general management. So it was all within the business college. And yeah, they were like, sure, you can have 3 majors on your degree. So I did some summer classes, I think maybe a couple winter classes, but it didn't really add a whole ton to my course load. I also went to community college my first 2 years and got my associate's degree there, and then transferred and got my bachelor's degree. Someone asked what other hobbies I have besides reading. I have a bunch of houseplants, as you can see. I just have them all throughout my apartment. I love taking care of them and watching videos about them. Besides booktube, I feel like plant content is probably my second most watched category of YouTube videos. I love seeing other people's plant collections and yeah, just taking care of my own. I also have recently gotten back into knitting, which I learned how to do when I was in 7th grade, and ever since then I've done a couple of smaller projects, but last year I decided to just go for it and make a sweater, and I'm waiting for some yarn to come back in stock so that I can start another one. So yeah, that's been kind of a fun thing to add to my list of activities. I've also recently really gotten back into playing Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is my favorite video game series of all time. I've played it since I was honestly, I want to say 5 years old. My dad brought home a GameCube for, I want to say Easter, I think, for some reason. And one of the games that he got with it was Animal Crossing, and I've played all of the games since then, besides Amiibo Festival, because we don't talk about Amiibo Festival. I recently have been getting back into playing on my island in New Horizons. I have almost 700 hours on that game. I got it right whenever it was released back in 2020, and it just got me through the pandemic and everything, so really into that. I love going on walks, and I've been getting into yoga a little bit. I'm not like a super athletic, like workout type of person, but I do love to go to the park and take a walk. I also just got a like walking pad mini treadmill thing. They've been like all over TikTok and stuff, and I was influenced to get one. And I've also, since I moved into my own apartment last year, have really been into cooking, and I've been trying to do like a new recipe each week this year. I just recently made a white chicken chili that was very delicious. Someone else asked, what kind of music do you like? Who are your favorite bands and singers? I think that some of you have picked up on this from some of my past videos, but I'm really honestly just like an emo kid that never grew out of that phase. Fall Out Boy and Paramore are my two favorite bands of all time. Panic at the Disco's old stuff was also really huge for me. Taking Back Sunday, My Chemical Romance, The Killers, even like A Day to Remember. I had a big like Sleeping with Sirens, Pierce the Veil, like Warped Tour phase when I was a teenager. The Wonder Years are another really big one. Besides that, I also love like the sad girl vibe of recent, you know, Boy Genius and all of the members of Boy Genius's solo projects. Muna, Maggie Rogers, Remy Wolf. I would say my two biggest like guilty pleasures, and I'm not guilty about it, but I think my two biggest guilty pleasures are Shania Twain and Britney Spears. Any sort of like indie pop or rock or anything like that is cool with me. This was one of my favorite questions. Yena asked, what is your favorite Paramore song? Be brave, pick just one. And Jalen asked, rank all Paramore albums and top 3 tracks overall. So I'm going to combine those questions, and I'm going to give you my album ranking and my favorite song on each album. So at the bottom of the ranking, we have Paramore, Self-Titled. I think my favorite song off of that album, this is kind of a hard one for me. I want to say though, at this point in time, it's Last Hope, just because when I saw them over the summer, that song, I had a never before seen reaction to that song. Like, never really got super emotional listening to it before, but hearing it live, I was standing in the pit sobbing. Like, it just really did something to me. So we're gonna go with that one. Next up is Riot. My favorite song on that, I would say, is probably For a Pessimist, I'm Pretty Optimistic, or That's What You Get. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth between those two. Then we've got All We Know Is Falling. My favorite song on that is Brighter. Now we're getting into the top 3. Number 3, this is so hard. Like, I'm looking at my notes with my ranking and I'm like, is this true? But we're gonna go with number 3 is This Is Why. My favorite song on that album is You First. Number 2 favorite album is Brand New Eyes. And my favorite song on that one, and I would honestly probably say my favorite Paramore song, which like could be subject to change, but this is the Paramore song that, like, this is when I started listening to them. This was the first song, and that is Where the Lines Overlap, which is like, I feel like such a random choice, but it was my favorite whenever I first started listening to them. And then my favorite Paramore album is After Laughter, and I'd say my favorite song on that one is Idol Worship. Also, special shout out to I Caught Myself and Hello Cold World, because they're not on any of those albums, but they're 2 of my favorite songs. We also have favorite My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy songs. Favorite My Chemical Romance song is Famous Last Words, and favorite Fall Out Boy song is Coffees for Closers. Someone asked, what does your ideal weekend look like? And then I think someone else asked, what does your ideal day look like? So I'm just gonna group those together. Honestly, like the weekend that just passed is probably my ideal weekend. I got all of my chores done on Friday night after I got home from work, so I didn't have to do anything productive on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday I woke up and made myself some breakfast and watched some YouTube and just like hung out on the couch, played some Animal Crossing, really just like did all of the hobbies that I mentioned earlier. I got some knitting done. I also am working on like a paint by numbers, which has been really fun, so I did that. Obviously got in a ton of reading and tried a new recipe for dinner. That white chicken chili was really good. And then on Sunday I like went for a walk, went to Target, more reading, hung out. It was super chill, super nice, you know. Didn't see any friends or anything this past weekend, but you could throw that in there too, and I think that that would make a really nice weekend or day. If you could go anywhere in the world, where would it be and why? And I feel like I never have an answer to this question. Like, people are like, oh, if you could live anywhere, where would you live? Like, I don't know. I'm not super attached to like place. Like, I like where I live, but I don't know. I'm not super attached one way or another to it. I also like haven't traveled very much, so like I'd be down to go anywhere, you know, if the opportunity arose. I'm gonna give a cop-out answer though and say France, just because I've been really into a lot of like French literature recently. And all right, those were all of the personal questions, so we'll move into the booktube questions. First one being, what made you want to start a booktube channel? And like, I've been a silent booktube watcher for quite some time now, past couple years probably. This chair is really squeaky. I really got into the past couple years like sharing what I've been reading on my Instagram stories, and like obviously I use Goodreads and Storygraph, but I just feel like those are not the best platforms for me to really share my thoughts. Like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like I struggle to just like sit down and type things out. And also like my Instagram account was mostly just people from like my personal life and stuff, and I'm like, they probably don't really care about these books. So yeah, I just like wanted more of an outlet to be able to talk about the books that I was reading, and I watched so many amazing people on here, which we'll get into. It just seemed like a fun kind of challenge for me. I have dabbled in a couple like online communities before. I was really into like doing makeup in like high school and college and had an Instagram account for that, but I never made any videos or anything like that. And yeah, this just seemed like something that I'd be able to actually get into and kind of sustain making videos. So yeah, just wanted to share my thoughts. Someone else asked, how has booktube changed your relationship to reading, and how has it been balancing making videos while also still fitting in reading? And this is something that I've kind of been talking about in my last couple videos, but making these videos has really made me think a lot deeper about the books that I read. It hasn't really changed the type of books or the amount of books that I'm reading, I don't think. My goal here is to just share what I'm interested in. I know like there's a lot of different content that, and I don't mean this in a bad way, if it's your vibe, like great, cool. But there's a lot of content, I think, on booktube that is kind of gimmicky and just not really the kind of thing that I'm interested in. Like, I feel like it would be very inauthentic for me to be like, oh, like I read Colleen Hoover's book so you don't have to, or, you know, reading like Kylie Jenner for a day. Like, I know that content is entertaining and, you know, people are into it, but it's just not really my thing. So I don't foresee the kind of books that I read changing as I progress on YouTube, because I just want to do what I'm truly interested in. As far as like balancing and like time management and stuff like that, I found this past month in January that taking notes as I was reading or like right after I read really helped a lot, because before I found that I would be like scrambling, trying to like prepare notes and just like gather my thoughts for like an evening. Maybe on Monday after I got home from work, I'd be like trying to prepare for a video. Tuesday I would film it, and then like Wednesday I'd be editing it, and it just felt like I was wasting a lot of time with the preparation of it, so kind of preparing as I've been reading has really helped balance that. But I mean, I read 9 books in January. I don't remember how many I read in December. That would have been my first full month of doing booktube, but I think it was still like a decent amount. So yeah, I think that the balance has been fine so far. Next question is, what's been your favorite video that you've made so far? I have 2, I think. One of them being the 1-sentence reviews of all the books that I read in 2023. I just felt like that was such a good overview of my taste as a reader. Like, I think if you were gonna watch one of my videos, that would be the one that I would recommend, because it's everything that I read in 2023, and I feel like I had a really good reading year, so I feel like it's very indicative of my taste. I also really liked the recent book unhaul and haul that I did, just because I felt very like comfortable making that, and I just had a lot of fun sitting down and just rambling about the books that I was getting rid of and the books that I got. Yeah, it was just like a really enjoyable experience. I thought it was as funny as I can be. Someone asked, how do you keep motivation high? I'm assuming that they were talking about booktube with this one. Honestly, just like getting to interact with the people in this little community is really what has made me want to continue with it. Like, I thought that I would start this channel and it would just be like my friends watching the videos, and I didn't think that it would really go anywhere initially. So as I've been going and just like getting to interact with more people and seeing people coming back and like commenting on multiple videos and kind of building that rapport with them has just been so much fun. And also just like documenting my reading journey. I blame this on Animal Crossing. Like, I'm very much like a completionist, and I kind of like to collect things, so I feel like having a collection of everything that I've read and like all my thoughts on it is just something that really appeals to me, and I like that documentation aspect of it. Someone asked, what advice would you give to someone wanting to start a booktube channel? Honestly, just do it. Don't overthink it. Just sit down and start rambling to your phone. Like, I know I mentioned a couple questions ago that I used to be really into makeup, and I never got into like making tutorials or anything like that, or like reviews or anything on YouTube, because I feel like the barrier to entry with that was very high. You need like a really good camera and like lenses and lighting so that everything looks nice, and then like makeup itself is just really expensive to purchase and like try out new stuff. And yeah, it just felt like the production value of videos like that would have had to be very high, and I just didn't have the means to do it. But with booktube, like my setup right now, I have a lamp, like not even like a light that you would use for filming. It's like literally a lamp from my living room. My phone is propped up on 5 books and a candle, and I'm just using my front camera to record myself. Like, the production value is very low, and like you don't even need a big collection of books to do this, because like the library exists. I feel like you can just sit down and start talking, and I think as long as you're true to yourself and your interests, like the audience that's meant for you will come to you, because people who like have those same interests are they're gonna find you. So I think just don't overthink it and just stick to your interests and what you're passionate about, and that'll really shine through. Got another like combo question here. What qualities or traits do you look for when it comes to watching other booktubers, and then who are your favorite channels? And to be honest with you, like I do look for people that mainly talk about like literary fiction and the kinds of nonfiction that I'm into. I do really enjoy whenever I find someone that is talking about books that I'm interested in or haven't gotten to yet, or if someone has like recommendations that I haven't even heard of, and I can, you know, add new books to the list. But I do usually stick within those kind of genre confines. My favorite channels, I have a list here, and I literally went through my YouTube subscriptions and I'm just gonna read them off, and I'll tag everyone in the description, because everyone on this list is wonderful, makes wonderful content, and are like all just such inspirations to me on this journey. So we've got Anna Wallace Johnson, Benjamin Journal, Bibliosophie, CJ Reads, Hannah May, Ivana, Litwithkat, Cat's Field Notes, Katie James, Literary Iggy, Modern Ajumma, Nathan's Nook, Pleasures of the Text, Rebecca Eats Books, So I Read This Book, The Bar in the Bookcase, The Left-Handed Reader, and What Page Are You On? I think that was like most of, if not all of the bookish people that I'm subscribed to here on YouTube. If you guys have any recommendations for channels that you think that I would vibe with, leave them down below. I'm always looking for more content. Those were all of the booktube questions. So we're gonna move into the just like general book related questions. Like I said, I kind of try to even split these ones up into like smaller sections too. So these first questions are just kind of like books in general. I had a favorite book of all time question and also top 5 favorite books. So we're just gonna do the top 5. And this is really hard for me. I feel like most of these books are books that I read in 2023, but I think that 2023 was my best reading year so far, and yeah, a lot of them just really, I think, resonated with me. So I think my favorite book of all time is An Apprenticeship or The Book of Pleasures by Clarice Lispector. Then we've got Crying in H Mart, which was a 2021 read, like whenever I was first getting back into reading. That book made me cry my eyes out, and I read the majority of it in one night after I got home from work. Number 3 would be The Guest Lecture by Martin Riker. 4 would be A Life of One's Own by Joanna Biggs. 5 would be Too Much and Not the Mood by Durga Bose. I think that that's the top 5. Someone asked, how long have you been reading for enjoyment? I got back into reading in May of 2021. I had just started at my job and I found myself with a lot of free time on my hands, and I actually started reading just on my lunch break at work every day because I found myself like doom scrolling a lot, and I wasn't really a fan of doing that in the middle of the workday. So I started bringing a book with me, and it was a nice way to kind of just get a built-in half hour of reading each day. And I was like, wow, okay, this is fun. I'm enjoying this. And it became something that I just started to do in my everyday life outside of that lunch break. I have a couple questions here that I'm going to kind of group together because I think they're all a similar vibe. What sparked your love for reading? What's the very first book you remember getting lost in / enthralled with? And is there a bookish moment in your life that changed reading for you, whether that was when you were a child, etc.? I was a really voracious reader as a kid. I don't remember having like a super specific moment that started the love for reading for me, but I was a huge fan of like Junie B. Jones, The Magic Tree House, Spiderwick Chronicles. I read all of the Harry Potter books when I was in elementary school too, except for the last one because I started it right before my 6th grade year ended and ended up having to give it back to the school library, and I just never ended up buying a copy or getting another copy of it from the library, so I never actually finished Harry Potter. But yeah, just anything that I could get my hands on. I remember like getting access to like the big kid side of the school library in elementary school because they had a lot of the like books for like younger kids, like picture books and stuff on one side, and then like the novels and stuff on the other, and being able to get my hands on those books was just such a huge deal for me. I think there was also like a group of me and a couple other girls that like, I don't know if it was like for lunch or for recess, but we would go and hang out with the librarian, and she had like a pen pal system that she started with us and like other people from the other elementary schools in my school district. So I remember that. And then there was another like bookish program that I was part of in elementary school too. I don't remember anything about it, but I do know that I got to like work in and like help out in the cafe at our local Barnes and Noble. There's a picture of me somewhere holding like a little tray of like little mini coffee drinks in Barnes and Noble, probably in like the 5th grade. And like I also just remember like, you know, the desks in elementary school, how they have like the opening in the front of them. Like I always had a stack of novels in the front section of my desk. So if I ever needed to get any like textbooks or folders or notebooks out of that part of my desk, I'd have to like shift everything over and like just move everything around because I just had like this stack of books blocking my actual school supplies. So yeah, reading was always a really big part of my life as a kid. I kind of really stopped reading for fun, I would say, in maybe like 10th or 11th grade. That was when they really started assigning us books to read in English class, and I was not a fan of that at all. I really don't know how I made it through my high school English classes because I did not read the books that they assigned us. But the big thing for me that really changed the game kind of in this era of my life was becoming friends with Claire, Chaos Central Books, on Instagram. We went to college together and became friends there, and we're very similar people. We have very similar interests, and I was like, dang, Claire reads a lot of books, you know, she's very into this, like, maybe she's on to something. And that was what kind of really inspired me to start reading for fun, and she was always so encouraging. When I was like first starting out and just like really slowly making my way through books and stuff, she was just always there for like recommendations and just encouragement. And it's really just been a pillar of our friendship for the last like 3 years. So books that have defined your taste, the ones that made you realize this is my thing. And I'm gonna give you a couple books that I read in 2021 when I was first starting out. My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. I purchased this book when I was in community college. She did like a speaking event in Pittsburgh, and I think one of my classes was giving like extra credit or something if you went to it, or like, I don't know, there was something through the school that I found out about this book, and I was anxious and I didn't end up going to the event, which I like am kicking myself for now. But I ended up buying the book because I was like, oh, the cover's cool and it sounds interesting. And yeah, I didn't actually read it when I was in community college. I read it after I graduated college, but that was a defining moment for me, I think. Also, Normal People by Sally Rooney, The Idiot by Elif Batuman, and Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Those were all books at the very beginning of my reading journey that I feel like really helped me narrow down what I'm into, but I feel like every book kind of helps you define your taste, you know? Next category all has to do with like authors. Someone asked, is there anyone that you would like to read their entire catalog of work? And someone else asked who my all-time favorite authors are, and I feel like those two questions kind of go hand in hand. Rachel Cusk, I've read 10 of her books, and I actually just today found out that I got an arc of her new novel coming out in June, Parade, from FSG, and I literally almost screamed in the break room at work. I was like sitting there on my lunch break and I checked my personal email and I was like, oh my god, when I saw the NetGalley email. So yeah, I've read 10 of her books so far. I think that's the most of any author, so I feel like by default she is my favorite. Joan Didion, I've read 6 of her books so far. Annie Ernaux, I've also read 6 of her books. Clarice Lispector, I've read 4 so far. And I'm currently on my 3rd book by Toni Morrison, and I'm reading Beloved right now, and I read Sula back in 2022 and absolutely loved it. I'm loving Beloved, and I think that she's definitely someone that I'm gonna read their entire catalog as well. And then some like honorable mentions like Ottessa Moshfegh and Sally Rooney. I've read all of their books that they've released so far. I feel like I'm not super like in that niche of books at the moment, but they're authors that I'll pick up whatever they put out. Deborah Levy's also one. I've read a handful of her books and I really want to read all of them. And Hanif Abdurraqib, I've only read They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us, but I love that one so much that I need to read all of the books that he's released. This one's an interesting one. If you could have your life written by any author, who would it be and why? I was like, I don't even know, but then it came to me. It would be Durga Bose. I think she just has such a comforting way of writing about things, and I think she's really good at writing about both like the small things in life but also like the more meaningful events in life. If you haven't read Too Much and Not the Mood, please pick it up because it is so good. And yeah, I think she would capture the everyday really well. I feel like Claire Louise Bennett would too, just based on Pond. I plan on rereading Checkout 19, but I feel like Claire Louise Bennett would be another good one. And then, who is an author you wish you could write like? Me and my very haphazard journaling skills wish that I could write like anybody, but I would probably have to pick Clarice Lispector just because she's one of my favorites and I think she has such a unique style. All right, now we've got some like miscellaneous but still bookish questions. Someone asked, what are your favorite themes, tropes, devices, any particular thing that you love to find or get in books? And I've got a little list here once again. Some of the things that I feel like are just always popping up in the books that I'm reading are motherhood, obsession, relationships breaking down, and then the main character like rebuilding their lives, solitude and the self, writing about reading and writing, journals, mundane moments in everyday life, formative experiences, straightforward, sparse prose is also a huge thing that I've realized that I just absolutely love. On the other side of the coin there, someone asked any sort of deal breakers or things that you've realized tend to make you lose interest or make you struggle to enjoy a book or are likely to make you give up on it. I have some themes and some examples of books that made me realize that I don't like these things. I would say most like magical realism or like fever dreamy kind of things. The thing that made me realize that was The Year of the Monkey by Patti Smith, which was a January read for me. On occasion, like I can sometimes deal with this, but sometimes it doesn't hit for me. Stuff that's super like grotesque or like gross and weird can sometimes not sit right with me. Two of the books that made me realize that were No One Belongs Here More Than You by Miranda July and Homesick for Another World by Ottessa moshfegh. There were just some strange moments in those books that just kind of didn't sit right with me. They made me uncomfortable. They were kind of gross. I also mentioned this in my book unhaul. I'm not a huge fan of like war stories. I can handle it in some capacities, but sometimes it's just not my favorite kind of backdrop for a story. I also just, if I'm struggling to connect with something, which is like so vague and could be for any reason, but it's like I don't care if the characters are likable or unlikable, but I just really want to be able to like feel something. And if I'm not feeling anything from like a character or a storyline or the ideas in a book, then I'm not into it. Someone asked, do you like short stories? Any authors or collections in particular? And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a huge short story gal. I much prefer an essay collection. Those work so much better for me, even though they're both like short forms of writing. I just much prefer an essay over a short story, but I do have a list of the collections that I have enjoyed that I've read. We've got Single Carefree Mellow by Catherine Haney, Pond by Claire Louise Bennett, Fiona and Jane by Jean Chen Ho, Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado, The Woman Destroyed by Simone de Beauvoir. I think there were like a couple other ones that were kind of middle of the road for me, but two that I really disliked were two that I mentioned in the previous question, Homesick for Another World and No One Belongs Here More Than You. Those two really put me off. If you have any short story recommendations, I'm not fully opposed to them. It's just not the form that I tend to gravitate towards, but open to any recommendations that anyone might have. Someone asked, what is your ideal reading routine? My ideal situation, I would say, would either be like on my couch, curled up with a blanket with all my little like lamps on and like a candle lit and like a cup of coffee. I would say either that or like at the park, laying on the ground on a blanket, like under a tree in the sun. But like on a day-to-day basis, my routine is usually reading on my lunch break at work, and then I'll read like after dinner and like after I shower before I go to bed. There are two different kind of interpretations to that question. Someone asked, how do you select your next read? And it really depends. NetGalley and like requesting arcs and stuff has kind of thrown a wrench into my system because there's more of like a time constraint aspect with those books, you know, wanting to read them and review them before the publishing date. So I'm trying to get better at managing that. But really, it's just a combination of like whatever I'm in the mood for. And like I do have some books that I pull off my shelves that are kind of like my priority for the month or the season or whatever. And then I also have some books that I want to get to just this year in general. So like Beloved that I'm reading right now is one of the books that I wanted to get to in 2024 in general. I don't really have like a set system or like rule book for how I choose my next book. Okay, next is, while reading, do you usually have music playing? And if you do, what you listening to? And you guys, I am a lo-fi hip-hop radio girl for life. Like the little girl like studying with like her cat and like everything, you know? That is always what I have on in the background. I put it on YouTube on my TV, and the lo-fi hip-hop girl sits there and keeps me company while I read. How do you look at the discourse between Amazon and indie bookstores? I did use Amazon for like a couple books here and there when I was first getting into reading and like didn't fully understand what was going on and like why that's not a great option to use. And in case you're not aware of the issues with Amazon versus indie bookstores, they sell books for a way lower price than indie bookstores are able to, and then Amazon makes their profit and their money off of other more expensive items. So they really like take a loss on books in order to sell them at that low price because they have such a chokehold on consumerism and like buying things for all the other categories as well, and they're able to make their money there. So that hurts indie bookstores obviously because they have to sell books for a higher price, and you know, they're small businesses, they can't afford to make the price cuts that Amazon does. So I'm really lucky because I have a handful of indie bookstores nearby that I love to go to and support. I also have a used bookstore pretty close by too, which is where I buy the majority of my books. So I, at this point in my life, like am always going to choose one of those local stores over Amazon. I really don't even order a lot of books like online in general, even from other websites. Like I really only order stuff if I'm looking for a specific edition or something like that. I just am really of the belief that like local bookstores are just such a great place to build community and get recommendations and just connect with people. So that's always where my loyalty is going to lie personally. If you guys are looking for alternatives besides obviously, you know, your local bookstores and your local library, bookshop.org is a great one because you can go in and choose independent bookstores and they will get some of the profit from the books that you buy on there. I feel like they're kind of the best option. I've used them a couple times. I use Scribd. I think if you're an audiobook person, it might be a good alternative to Audible because I know they're owned by Amazon too. I use it mostly for like ebooks and stuff, so it is kind of also like a Kindle replacement for me. So this one made me laugh because I talk about White Whale, which is like my favorite local bookstore so much. I know you love White Whale, but what are some of your other favorite bookstores? So the other main indie bookstore that I go to is called Completely Booked. I know there's like a handful of other ones in the Pittsburgh area, but I just haven't gotten to them yet, so I have like a little list of ones that me and Claire went to visit. Online though, I also really like to get some like fun editions from Womb House Books, and I've also used Abe Books, I think is how it's pronounced, maybe, I'm not sure. I've used them for some like specific vintage editions that I was looking for. I have two other questions here that I don't have any like answer written down for. One of them is, what book are you dying to read but are circling around for whatever reason, and why? And my TBR shelf is right behind me, so I'm gonna... Okay, I feel like this is kind of a random answer, but one of the books that I remember hearing about a ton when I was like first getting back into reading, I think Claire was a really big fan of this too, was Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. Got it here. I've had it on my bookshelf probably for honestly maybe 2 years at this point. I don't remember when I got it, but I think the size is the main thing that's deterring me from it. I'm trying to get over my aversion to big books. It honestly doesn't even look that big, looking at it on my shelf right now, but. And then my last question here that I literally cannot think of an answer for, I think Kat's Field Notes was the one that asked this. And she wants to know my best literary hot take. I don't know, I feel like I don't have controversial opinions on things. I'm like looking at my books trying to see if there's one that's gonna like make me think of something. I owe you guys a literary hot take at some point in the future. Whenever I think of one, I'll let you guys know. Okay, that is gonna be it for today. Once again, thank you guys so much for subscribing and tuning into these videos. Thank you for asking these questions. I had a lot of fun answering them. And yeah, I hope this was informative, I guess. I don't know. I will see you guys in the next one.